is an easel. This is, and we're going to be making 5 by 7 inch enlargements. So you'll notice there's 2 sides to it. This is the side we're going to be using. So this will get set up in the station here. So again, I'm going to turn on my enlarger, and I am going to start with a negative because that's a good place to start for an enlargement. So my negative carrier, so remember we're keeping it closed right now. I'm not turning any lights on. If I have, so nobody has paper out, right? So let me show you what happens. So this is the light that's on. If I open my negative carrier, check out all of that light that flies around. You will have people yelling at you if you do this. So don't ever do that. It's nice for you to kind of get that idea. So I will open this up with the light off. This is my negative carrier, and Kat, there you are. Do you know what negative you want to start with? Yeah. So, whoop. Can you point it out to me? Oh,
it's like a little duck.
Oh, cute. All right. So the thing that I want you to notice is when we're looking at the film, one side is shiny and the other side is dull. Also, I am not touching the film itself with my fingers this way, only carefully by the edge. So I want the shiny side up because the dull side is the emulsion. I want the emulsion side down so that the image looks the way it looked when I made the photograph, okay? Nothing will explode if you don't do it right, but words would be backwards. So I have this handy little window that I want to make the negative sit in, and I'm very carefully holding it by the edges of the film, and I'm letting the carrier open a little before I move it sideways. If you're like having trouble in the dark doing this, it's okay to go out into the light and get everything lined up. But you can also learn to do it here. So I'm just moving it slightly. Like I said, I'm letting the carrier open. These are spring-loaded open. These other carriers kind of hold themselves closed. So they're a little bit different, but the same idea. So then I just put the carrier in here. It sits like I can feel it click. There's a circle here that it sits in. The other ones have a little bit different fit, but you'll see how on these they're all flush. If it's I want to show you the difference here. So sometimes they get jammed up like this. See how that's not flush there? These need to be sitting here and with that clamp down, okay? If it's not in there right, things will not necessarily go well. All right, so now I have my negative in here. I'm going to turn my light on. I'm not using the timer. I'm using the focus button. So if you're having trouble with that, grab somebody, even me. And I just put my aperture wide open because I want it as bright as possible. And it looks really like just a blob here. So I need to focus this image. I know though, because I'm gonna make a 5 by 7, that this enlarger is a little too high. So I'm gonna bring it down, and then, oh, there's only a focus knob on the right on this one. And I'm going to bring it so that I can see the image sharp. And I might have to like adjust it a couple of times, so I'm gonna bring it down a little bit more. I can crop at this point, so I don't have to use the entire negative. So like this one of Kat's, I'm gonna kind of crop it a little bit and see how I've put little duck guy, the rule of thirds. So this is like when we crop in digitally, all right? And then I'm gonna snug this down on the right, and I'm on a 1.5 filter. That's a 0.5, I wish went all the way down instead of, I put it on a 3 filter to start with.
Is the light 1.5? Is that what you said?
This
What's
is
1.5?
the contrast filter was 1.5, but I'm setting the contrast filter on a 3 to start with. And you'll see this in your directions, so the step by step is all in there. Oh, and one of the things I forgot that's in the step by step. So one of the things I want to do is this is what this little blowy thing is for. I'm going to make sure there's no dust on my negative. If there's dust on my negative, will make a little white dot on my print. Okay, so I have, I'm still wide open. I've made this as focused as possible to my naked eye, which may not be really good because I'm not wearing my glasses. But what I want is I want to make it what we call grain sharp. So remember, the film is made up of silver salts. When we talk about the grain of the film, does anybody remember that? Mm-hmm. Yes. So we see the grain of the film. It looks like grains of sand or salt or sugar, just like that, little teeny tiny dots. And what I want is for those little teeny tiny dots, those grains, to be sharp. When I look at it here, there's this magnifier, so I'm gonna look at it in there. When I'm grain sharp, then I know the image is as sharp as it was in the camera. So if I'm grain sharp and my image is blurry, that means that I didn't focus in the camera. But if I focused in the camera and I'm grain sharp, that means, there we are. And it can be a little tricky to see. So you have to line your eye up with the grain focuser, not necessarily have your eye on it. That may or may not work. But do you see that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so now Kat,
so we're looking for it to not be grainy?
no, we want the grain.
Okay.
We want the grain to be sharp, because that's what's going to make our image sharp. Okay, so that will be absolutely the thing that we're looking for. So now I know that this image is as sharp as like I said, as it was when Kat made the photograph. So I'm still wide open because I wanted as much light as possible, but that will probably not make a good exposure because it would be too fast. And I can talk more about that, but I'm going to go down 2 stops. I always adjust my aperture with the light on and watching the light that's coming down here, because then I can confirm that I just made that light dimmer. Remember, 2 stops down, I'm taking away light. It's really easy to get confused, like somebody's like, oh, I stopped down 2 stops, but you really opened up 2 stops and now the light's brighter. So always make sure the light is on when you make those adjustments. The next thing is I'm going to my timer up for 5 seconds, and I'm going to turn my light off. So I want to decide where I want to place my test strip. So I'm looking at the image and I want to put my test strip where I see highlights in my image. So if I'm looking at a negative image, because that's what it looks like here, and I want to put my strip on highlights, what is that going to look like here? Negative image, dark. So I'm looking for a darker area, and I'm just going to kind of hold it in my head where that was, and then I'm going to lay my strip kind of across, and I'm going to find my favorite piece of cardboard, and guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a time test. Remember how we did that? Mm-hmm. So 5 seconds over the whole thing, and it's going to beep, and I'm going to turn that noise off. And then I am going to cover about a 1/2 inch section of that, and I'm going to hold the cardboard on the top of the easel. So I lifted the easel up and then I'm scooching it over. And so I'm doing the same thing. I'm just giving it a 5-second exposure, scooting my cardboard over. Oh, someone has something electronic in here. Who's talking? So remember, if you have an electronic device in here, to be very, very careful with it. You don't want it emitting random light. So just like when I did the time test with the contact sheet, I'm doing the exact same thing on my test strip here. All right. And guess what I'm gonna do now? I'm gonna come over here to the developer. Excuse me. You see that we have 2 developers now because I know that we're going to be doing a lot more work. Is that at the 12?
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody help me keep track because when I'm talking I can lose track.
90 seconds.
90 seconds. Excellent. So 2 developer trays. Choose one, stay in that one. If you go from one developer tray to the other, something could have happened. Somebody might have contaminated one, and it might be a little bit weaker, a little bit different. Remember, we want to stay as consistent as possible in the darkroom. Always using the same enlarger. If you're working and you're doing, you're in a developer, keep the developer the same. Okay, how are we doing on time?
It's not even at the 12 again. Yeah.
Okay, not quite at 60 seconds. So it's 90 seconds here, and notice the same exact developing agitation that I'm doing. Apparently, we only have the bamboo tongs. Hopefully we'll get more of those little metal tongs, because those are pretty nice. Are there one of them? Oh, there's a couple here. So, but remember the tongs can't travel, shouldn't travel. All right.
You're almost there.
We're almost at the 90 seconds. Thank you so much, Jordan, for keeping my time.
You're good.
All right, so I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to let it drip, not flicking it. I don't want to fling chemistry around. I'm going to put it in the stop bath. Remember, I dropped it. It doesn't have to be agitated in the stop bath, but it's kind of hard to give up the habit of agitation. So this is a 30-second bath. And good. Are you still keeping eyes on that? Yay, Jordan's my eyes today. At least for my clock. Does this seem like it's making sense? Is it feeling more familiar? Mm-hmm. Cool. So this part will be the same, but when we look at the test strip and what we're looking for is going to change. All right, so that's 30 seconds in the stop. And then because this is a test strip, how much time do I want in the fixer?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Excellent. Also not necessary to agitate, but it doesn't hurt it. And next week I'll talk to you about efficient time-saving practices in the darkroom, okay? But for right now, we're just kind of sticking with everything, doing it one thing at a time. All right, so 30 seconds, and now I'm going to put it in the water. Just gonna scooch things a little bit. There should be tongs. We'll grab some tongs. Since it's water, I don't need tongs, but I do want my towel, which is in my drawer. So, it's a really good idea for you all to have some kind of a shock towel. But come out into the light and we'll talk about what we're looking for. Okay, so this is, you can see again, can everybody see how we are lighter on one side and it gets really dark on the other side. So one of the things that I can tell by looking at this test strip is that it gets too dark too fast, right? It's too dark. We're having trouble even seeing what the heck we're looking at. So what makes it dark? Light. So what I'm going to suggest the cat does, stop down one more stop and do this process again. What we're going to be looking for is, and we're going to be looking at the whites or the highlights and where we just start to get some texture. Okay, that's our starting point. So we're exposing for the whites, and then we'll use our contrast filter to get the blacks. So one of the common things is students will look at this and say, but I like the blacks over here. And it's like, that's great, but first we have to start with the whites. We're exposing for the whites when we get that time. Then we adjust the contrast filter to get blacks. So if we want our blacks to be blacker and darker, we're going to increase the contrast filter. So this is at a 3. So we have a 4 and a 5 to go to make our blacks blacker. But the first step with this would be to stop it down one more stop, then do the time test again, find the highlights that we like, and then move on. All right, are you ready to have fun?